explorers. It's your adventure podcast hostess with the mostest, Katie Staples. I'm going to share my travel stories, tips, and tricks for exploring and creating unforgettable experiences and memories. Today, we're talking about camping mistakes to avoid so that you can have the best experience possible. Let's be real. Have you had mistakes you could have avoided? Say yes. Hmm. Some of these ideas are from my own crazy adventures, and I've gotten suggestions from others as well. I have 12 tips for you today. Now, when I was writing this list, I did feel a little bit like a grumpy old man because I was like, don't do this, don't do that. Just know this is all meant to help you. Okay, first, we got to address camping etiquette. Lord have mercy, nothing ruins getting away from people like people. We all think people know general rules like don't litter, leave no trace, clean up after your dog, yada, yada. Yet there's still signs everywhere reminding us to follow those rules. Why is that? It's because people don't have proper etiquette. So let's go over some less known etiquette rules to make sure you're the best neighbor possible when you're camping. Some other common complaints from neighbors, besides those we just mentioned, include etiquette mistake number one, encroaching on other people's campsites. If you see a tent, an RV, a car, a human sitting there, that's their spot. They get the whole thing. Please don't cut through or just waltz right up to have a conversation if you haven't been invited. When I have the option to choose a campsite like at a state park, I avoid the ones right next to the bathhouse because people, especially kids, will cut corners to get there. And honestly, I'm camping to get away from the people. Earlier this year, I was car camping in Joshua Tree. Car camping. So, no, I didn't have a tent out or anything, yet it was the middle of the day and it was hot. So, I was resting after my morning hike. My rental car was parked at my site and I was laying in my hammock. It was at the Jumbo Rocks campground inside the park. This couple was waltzing around, doo talking, looking at the cool rocks, and they walked right into my sight. So after a minute of them just standing there having like a full on conversation, I popped my little head out of the hammock and looked at them kind of like, hey, I'm sure you don't see me over here yet. Now that you do. And they apologized and they went on their way. Etiquette mistake number two, not being mindful of your noise. Most people go camping to escape the sounds of civilization and listen to the sounds of nature. So, especially if you're somewhere peaceful like a state park or BLM land or the woods or backcountry camping, no one else should hear you or your music. There's a popular hiking trail near where I live called Stone Mountain, and it blows my mind how many people carry a portable speaker with them blasting music while they're hiking. Like, turn it down. Okay. Or, hey, I don't know, use headphones. Also, respect quiet hours. Each campground has their own rules for this. And generally, quiet hours are like 9 or 10 p.m. until 6, 7, or 8 a.m. Sometimes there's specific generator hours on top of that. So just be a good neighbor. Okay. You don't get to have a good time at the expense of someone else's peace. Mistake number three brings me to non-human campers, our pets. Look, I am a dog person, okay? I have two dogs, Molly and Provolone, and they are my children. I spoon baby Provolone every night. Bebe gets what Bebe wants in the Staples household. Yet, you think I'm gonna let these crazy heads just bark at whatever they want at the campground? No. Remember, almost all places require that dogs only be outside when the humans are also outside. You can't leave them tied out when you're inside, like an RV, or if you're gone. And when they're outside, they're usually supposed to be leashed unless you have a fence that you bring with you. Molly is almost always on a 25-foot rope because Homegirl's prey drive is ridiculous. I've taken at least 5 chipmunks and squirrels from her. The second she sees a wild animal, she gone. She ain't coming back. Provolone, on the other hand, listens to Mama much better. So sometimes he can be off lead because I know he'll stay right with me and Molly on our site. Etiquette mistake number 4, shining your lights in other people's direction. When I'm camping where there are RVs, whether I'm in mine or not, I love walking the dogs around the campground to go RV window shopping. There's so many cool rigs out there and all different kinds now, and I love seeing how people set theirs up. My Winnebago Sheldon is amazing, and yet he's not fancy like some of these out here. Some RVs have these cool lights underneath, or people hang lights around their awnings. That being said, Please turn your lights off at night when you're not using them. I've spent many nights in my RV with the shades closed, and there was still so much light coming in. Now, just FYI, for those that don't know, sometimes the lights under RVs are for deterring rodents. Especially when it gets cold, rodents love to climb under RVs, especially in the motors of the drivable ones to find warm shelter. Usually, though, I see people with a darker colored light, like blue, rather than bright white light left on all night underneath. Last and not least for etiquette, mistake 5, smoking. I get it. We're outdoors. Yet there's a rule in most places that you don't smoke within 25 feet of a doorway when you're back in civilization. If you're right up next to another's campsite, please take your cancer stick somewhere else. Everyone's going to smell campfires. We expect that. Yet no one is ever asking for your secondhand smoke or to see cigarette butts on the ground. All right, done with etiquette. Camping mistake number 6 is not securing food from wildlife. I'm sure we've all had it happen. Squirrels, raccoons, ants, something has taken part of your lunch. Here's the problem. Whether you mean to or not, you're training wildlife to come close to humans because humans leave food out. It may not seem like a big deal for a squirrel to take a cracker, yet this is how wildlife get hurt and annoy campers. One time at Tyler State Park in Texas, I was sitting outside with Molly when I saw a little face poke out from behind the RV tire. It was a raccoon, which was super weird because they're nocturnal and this was in the middle of the afternoon. Molly, of course, wanted to go after it, so I shooed it away for its own safety, and that little muffin head came back. Okay, it walked right into our sight, and Molly, on a long lead, went right after it. I didn't know anything was happening until I heard the little raccoon scream, and then I saw it and Molly locked in this tussle. I pulled Molly off of it, a tuft of tail fur in her mouth, and Homeboy scampered up a tree. Then he had the audacity to stare down at us from up there for like an hour. Rude. I called the state park office because I was worried it had rabies since it was out during the day, and I just wanted to make sure that Molly would be okay. The ranger said, unfortunately, with so many people feeding them now, they just come up to people in the park during the day. So humans, stop doing that. It probably seems like a little bigger deal when the animal taking your food is a freaking bear. Growing up in Girl Scouts, we were always taught that you leave your food in one bag, you tie a rope to it, throw the rope over a branch, and then hoist it up the tree. A lot of campgrounds out west in bear country have metal bear boxes at the sites. If that exists at your site, you best use it. You think keeping meat or smelly peanut butter or jerky in your tent or cooler is safe? Nah, bears can rip doors off of a vehicle. Use the bear box. Camping mistake number 7 is not booking early enough. This can be said for almost all travel. Some campgrounds begin booking a year out, and if you're not in the first 30 minutes, you've missed out. There are RV campgrounds in the Florida Keys that will literally sell out for the winter that quickly. Waiting until the last minute means you're likely to miss the good sites at campgrounds, like a waterfront one. And when I took my mom and dad to Mammoth Cave National Park, I booked our campground about a month out as well as our cave tours. Well, I was surprised to see that the River Styx cave tour wasn't offered on one of the days we were there. Except it was offered that day. That tour just sold out weeks in advance. It worked out okay for us because we were there for 2 full days and we could do it the second day. Yet then I saw the 2 following days, weekend days after that, sell out as well. If you know your plans, go ahead and book. You're also much more likely to not get as good of deals and therefore spend more money when you book last minute. Plan ahead, have the best possible experience, save money, and go on more trips. Camping mistake number 8 is not double checking your packing list and forgetting something. Again, this one can really be for any type of travel. Obviously, for camping, you'll need water, food, sunscreen, and or bug spray, all your toiletries, clothes, and gear. I have a few different packing lists depending on where I'm going, the length of the trip, and how I'm camping. I keep that list on my phone in the Notes app, and when I've packed an item, I put a green check mark emoji by it. I also have to-do items on there like take out the trash, set up the timed lights inside of the house, put air in the tires, etc. Then, right before I leave on the trip, I go through it one more time and double check that everything really was packed. When you go on a longer hike, especially in remote areas or with poor cell reception, make sure your list includes emergency supplies, extra water, extra food, a knife, a whistle. I'm such a good little Girl Scout. If you're lost, hug a tree, blow a whistle 3 times, etc. Mistake 9 is not checking weather or not being prepared for intense weather. Certain parts of the world have very predictable daily weather. So when I lived in Panama City Beach, you could expect on summer days for it to be very hot and humid right when you wake up, have a 1 or 2 hour shower in the afternoon, and then be sunny and humid again. Lather, rinse, repeat. Certain parts of the world also have very unpredictable weather, especially out west and at high elevations. Last summer, I did a 60-day RV trip with Molly across the lower part of the country. It was Memorial Day weekend until end of July. I knew that it would be hot, okay? I didn't know that the 100-degree heat of Page, Arizona was a different kind of heat than the 100 degrees back home in Georgia. Yay for dry air, like less humidity. And yet it felt like I was in an oven. It was uncomfortable on my skin being outside for more than like 15 minutes. It got up to 104 or 106 one day there. And I had the RV thermostat set to 85 degrees, thinking, well, that's pretty generous. I'm not asking too much. Yet the inside of the RV got up to 90 degrees in the afternoon, and my AC was constantly going. It just couldn't keep up. So be prepared for the heat and be prepared for the cold. Right after Thanksgiving 2022, Molly and I went on an RV trip from Georgia to Texas to Kansas City and back home. It was December 1st when we stopped for a night outside Oklahoma City at a really cool place called Lake Thunderbird State Park. I wasn't expecting too extreme of temperatures for just December 1st, yet it got down to about 25 degrees that night, and my furnace malfunctioned and cut off. So I woke up that morning and it was like 50 degrees inside the RV. I wrapped Molly in the comforter and I could only heat the inside of the RV using the air vents from the cab of the motorhome. So know your weather and have a backup plan when in extreme temperatures. The last weather phenomenon to protect you against is flash floods. While I suppose these could happen anywhere, they're very common in drier areas like out west. Moderately hydrated soil can soak up water more quickly than soil that is bone dry. So, in areas where soil is extremely dry, because that's normal for the climate, heavy rains cannot be absorbed by the earth and it causes a lot of runoff water. Flash floods kill. Literally, 88 people die every year on average in the United States alone due to flash flooding. Last episode on Zion National Park, I shared that at least 10 people have died in the last decade alone hiking the Narrows when a flash flood hit. Mistake 10, not checking local rules of where you're visiting. I've camped in almost 20 states. Did you know most states won't allow you to bring firewood in from another area? Invasive insects, fungi, bacteria, they're all affecting our forests. So, to prevent spreading those, counties and states have rules against transporting firewood. I didn't know that until I brought firewood from my house to a few hours north, still in the state of Georgia, and they asked us when checking in not to unload it. There's also areas that don't allow open fires or no wood fires, yet you can use those propane solo stoves. Just check the rules of where you're going ahead of time to make sure you don't break any. Camping mistake 11 is leaving headlamps or headlights or lanterns on overnight. Yeah, it's annoying when you leave a lantern or flashlight or like a headlamp battery on all night and now you have to replace them. Imagine if you also commit mistake 9 and you forgot to bring extra batteries. You know what's worse? When your RV's battery dies because you left the headlights on all night. Y'all, I have a master's degree, okay? I graduated cum laude from Virginia Tech. I got a perfect math score on my SAT, and I left the RV headlights on all night once, and it killed my battery. No one is immune to these mistakes, no matter how smart you are. The dogs and I were booking it back home from a long trip as fast as possible. And I was planning to just drive until I got tired, get a quick 7 hour sleep in, parked with the big rigs at a Love's or something, and then finish up driving the next day. Well, we got to a gas station where there were other RVs stopped for the night. I walked the dogs to let them out before bed. And then I realized several people were running their generators, and it was so loud inside my bedroom that I wasn't going to be able to sleep. Okay, that's fine. There's another big truck stop down the road. I get there, I park, and I've already taken the dogs out, so I don't have to again. Totally left the headlights on and never went outside to realize my mistake. So I just threw it in park, put the window shade up, and then spoon baby provolone night night. I wake up the next morning and take the dogs out, and the trucker parked next to me comes out and says, "Hey, I think your battery died." And I'm like, "Okay, crazy person, how could you know that?" He said he woke up in the middle of the night and saw that my headlights were on. Then, when he got up super early that morning, he noticed they were off. He was right. I went to cut on the engine and it didn't even go, "Rrrr," okay. It just, the battery was completely dead. Thank goodness this super kind guy offered to jump my RV from his 18 wheeler, which I didn't even know you could do. And I was able to get on the road like 20 minutes later. So check your lights. Mistake 12 is not bringing the right attire. We talked about weather earlier. Dress for the weather that you expect and have some gear for the unexpected. I don't care if the chance of rain is 20%. If you have the room, bring a rain jacket or umbrella. If you're going to experience extreme elevation changes, or you'll do an activity that starts before dawn and ends in the sunshine, or starts in the heat of the day and ends after dark, bring layers. Bring an extra pair of shoes and at least one extra shirt, pair of underwear, and socks. You can only turn those things inside out so many times before you can't reuse them again, okay? Just kidding. Now, I know you were expecting 12 mistakes to avoid, and yet, wait, there's more. What? Surprise extra mistake? It's like finding an extra chickie tendy in your Chick-fil-A order. Mistake 13 is not having a takedown list or process. Have you ever left your campground, gotten on the road just to realize you left a chair or flashlight or something behind? I've shown up to campsites with water spigots and found someone else's water pressure regulator still attached. It's not the end of the world, they're like 30 bucks. Yet, if you don't have access to a store that carries those and you're on a long trip, it stinks. My RV has a stair step for the side door that extends out when you open the door and then goes back underneath when you close the door, unless you hit a button which keeps it out all the time when you're stationary. Well, one time I didn't realize the stairs were still out until after I had driven hours down the highway with like an 8-inch metal slab hanging out the right side of the rig the whole way. Most RVs have roof vents that you wind open and closed. Have you ever forgotten one of those was open and then you went fast enough that it blew off? Yeah, me neither. No, seriously, that did happen. And of course, there were no Camping Worlds anywhere on our route for like 2 days to get a replacement. And it was cold outside, cold. So when we stopped for the night to prevent all the heat from escaping from inside, I climbed on the roof and I stuffed towels in the hole to insulate it a little bit. Then I had to climb back up before leaving the next day to get the towel so it wouldn't blow away like his friend, the vent cover. Anytime there's a repeatable process, you should have a checklist to ensure you get it all done. Do those items in a certain order each time so it becomes a habit. Do all the exterior stuff first, like chairs and tent stakes, RV power cord, etc. And then have a list of any interior stuff too if you have a rig. Like, oh, make sure you close the cabinet door where the DVD player is so it doesn't come hurtling out onto the dining table when you take a turn. So there's my 13 camping mistakes to avoid. What have been your biggest mistakes and what did I miss? Find me on Instagram at the.great.escape.podcast and send me a message. Don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can follow along and dream big for your journeys on the Great Escape. See you next time, adventurers.